Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. So today we're going to be taking a look at Swordsoul Tenyi. Definitely been a minute since we've seen this deck. Haven't really played it at all, honestly, since Sprite came out. But of course I want to make sure that we're still covering a variety of meta-relevant decks here on the channel. So wanted to come back to good old Swordsoul here. So what is going on with Swordsoul in this current meta? Unfortunately, not a lot, and that is kind of the truth here. Swordsoul, as we saw in our most recent meta-analysis video, is actually coming up not even on the pie chart at all. It kind of got pushed down to the other category, which is where you would think a lot of rogue decks would be. Does that mean Swordsoul Tenyi is a rogue level deck now? I don't think so. I think it's just being underrepresented currently because of the prevalence of sprites and it being a new and very much more powerful deck. That combined with the fact that Swordsoul Tenyi has not changed like at all really since Halki Fibrax got banned. I think it's a combination of people just kind of being done with this deck on multiple levels, both in terms of like, okay, I've played this deck a lot, it plays the same as it did 6 months ago, like let's move on to something new. That, and also again the power level, it's just not looking quite as good as it has in the past, which I said this again in the meta-analysis video, but it really is a shame. Swordsoul Tenyi is a very cool deck and has very much felt like the most fair, like meta tier 1 deck, honestly, that I can think of, period. And again, you know, I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For a long time. I'm certified Yu-Gi Boomer status here. And yeah, I can tell you that there's very scarcely been tier 1 decks that feel as like fair to play against as Swordsoul Tenyi here. As far as like the build itself goes, I haven't really changed a whole lot, honestly. The last iteration we were playing Desires. I ended up dropping those for the Triple Tactics talent. As many of you know, I am extremely up on this card right now, and I think this card is very, very good in this meta, with sprites running around, activating, God, all kinds of monster effects during your turn, and of course the prevalence of hand disruption like Maxx and Blosson, so on and so forth. Triple Tactics talent is better than it ever is as good as it's ever been in its current meta state. So I decided to throw in a set here to Swordsoul Tenyi just to see how they would perform, but I haven't been disappointed by them. They've not really liked Desires anyway, I gotta be honest. I'm not a huge fan of Desires in this deck. I mean, granted, we are running enough, like, multiple copies of stuff that it's usually not a problem, but it's, you know, there's enough times where you hit, like, both your Longyuans or, like, both your Vishudas if you need a Vishuda to make a play. It's just inconvenient enough that I think the triple tack, not only that, but like we're not really looking to draw 2 cards necessarily all the time off of this triple tack. It's not like just substituting Desires like straight up as a draw 2. The fact that triple tack also has like some very relevant and very powerful modes to it is definitely what also is appealing about the card. Honestly, even more so than the draw 2. So again, I'm not just replacing it as a different draw 2 than Desires, but I think it's an overall better card for the deck in general. Desires just really felt like a placeholder card to me, like, because this is one of those decks that will like have a lot of room for tech and other stuff. Like the Swordsouls and Tenyis themselves don't make up the bulk of this deck necessarily, so oftentimes you have to find yourself like getting up to 40 with, again, stuff like Desires or like various disruption. I decided to just go with the Triple Tactics talent. I also dropped Valor because I was on 1 Valor, 2 Imperm for just the 3rd Imperm. Just again, mostly for the Triple Tactics talent. But also, of course, there's like Sprite Red, which is out more often enough than Carrot that like I think that's another reason Imperm is significantly better than Valor. Imperm just overall tends to be better against sprites than Valor does, so ultimately just decided to cut a copy. Plus, like, I don't really feel the need to tech the 1 Valor for a Crossout in this current format, because people by and large are cutting a lot of Valors, so just don't expect to see it as often. Extra deck, I mean, it's still exactly the same. I have kind of considered cutting one of the monks for Geomathmech Final Sigma. It's not terribly difficult for this deck to make it, and it's a nice tool to be able to go into, but I don't know, the 3rd monk has come up enough. Like, it's come up enough that I still, I think, want to keep it. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I really don't have a whole lot else to say about this deck right now, and it's, like, kind of one of the main reasons why I'm not playing it, and I think a lot of people aren't, is because, like, it's Swordsoul. Like, sure, it's still solid. I'm not saying it's bad. And I'm not even saying that, like, I dislike the deck now, or that I think the deck is, like, boring. Maybe I am saying I think the deck is a little boring now. I'm not saying that as, like, a slight against the deck. I think Swordsoul is a fine deck. It's strong in this meta. I still think it's a solid tier 2 deck, even if it is being underrepresented right now. But, like, it's Swordsoul. Like, I feel like that's, like, the sum of my commentary so far is, like, yep, it's still Swordsoul. So, in any case, let's just go ahead and break the list down card by card, and then we'll look at some gameplay here. So, we're on 2 Tenyi Spirirt Adhara, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom, 1 Tenyi Spirirt Shthana, 3 Swordsoul of Mo Ye, 2 Swordsoul of Taia, 2 Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous, 2 Swordsoul Strategist Longyuan, 2 Tenyi Spirirt Vishuda, 3 Tenyi Spirirt Ashuna, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Archnemesis Protos, 3 Triple Tactics Talent, 3 Swordsoul Emergence, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Exterminator, 2 Heavenly Dragon Circle, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 Swordsoul Blackout. For the extra deck, we're on Yazi, Evil of the Zing, 2 Baxia, Brightness of the Zing, 1 Draco, Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Adamancipator and Dragite, 2 Swordsoul Grandmaster Chi Shao, 1 Chao Fang, Phantom of the Zing, 1 Baronne de Fluer, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, 1 Swordsoul Sinister Sovereign Chi Xing Longyuan, 3 Monk of the Tenyi, and then finally 1 Shaman of the Tenyi. Oh, this is also pronounced Baxia, I think, not Baxia. You don't hard pronounce the X in this, so, I mean, I'm not the only person who's been butchering this pronunciation, but I actually learned that recently, so wanted to point that out there. But in any case, let's just go ahead and take a look at some of these games here. Alright, so our first game here is going to be up against a Sprite deck, Pure Sprite. And this was actually a pretty solid game. I had a really nice back and forth with my opponent in this one. We're going to start off by taking the first turn here, but oh, yeah, you look at this hand, it's bad. This is miserable. Ecclesia doesn't even do anything here, because, like, we don't have a card to reveal with Mo Ye, and this isn't a Swordsoul, so we can't just grab Taia and then banish the Ecclesia. It's just rough overall. We're just going to have to set Imperm and pass here. That said, you know, at the very least, we have Imperm, Ash, and Nibiru, so it's not like we're just dead yet, but we're just going to start off with a Deep Sea Diva. I'm just going to go ahead and Imperm it. I could have arguably used the Ash Blossom instead. I think that actually would have been the better choice, especially because I have 2 in hand. But I saw Deep Sea Diva. I figured it's probably going to be Sprite, which means I'm probably going to need the Ash Blossom later. I guess to be fair, if they had Sprite starter exactly, then it would have been right to keep Ash Blossom over Imperm. But when thinking about the Gigantic Sprite later, you could have used either. So maybe it was right to actually use Imperm there and hold the Ash, now that I think about it. You could really make an argument either way for that one, I think. Opponent's got a Triple Tactics Talent, but not only did they, in my opinion, pick the wrong mode to draw 2 cards, but they actually placed it in the Imperm zone. Ugh, that sucks. I feel for my opponent here, because I've definitely made this mistake before, but like I said, even then, I kind of think Draw 2 was the wrong mode for my opponent to pick here. I really think they should have ripped a card from my hand. Because I've already used 2 cards out of my hand, you know, you gotta figure, I guess maybe their line of reasoning was that my hand was already apparently bad enough to set Imperm and pass, that they thought maybe improving their own hand was more important than making my already bad hand worse. So I guess maybe in that regard, it was just a read on my current hand state that they chose to draw 2 there. I don't know. I guess I might still argue to looking at your opponent's hand anyway, because, like, I don't know, what are you really going to draw as the Sprite player here to really, like, get yourself, like, out of the situation? I guess Blue, Jet, Starter... Okay, that's a lot of cards. that's a lot of cards, to be fair. Oh, it looks like they had the Starter all along anyway, so... Look at me misremembering, I should just clicked Advance here. But the nice thing about this is that we're actually going to get to drop Nibiru here, because we managed to negate the Gigantic Sprite effect. And indeed, since my opponent actually just grabbed another starter, I'm just going to use the Nibiru now. Before they have a chance to link it to an elf or... Oh, you know what? This was the misplay. I forgot about this. Yeah, I should have waited actually until they summoned the Ronin, because now they're able to go into Sprite Elf. That's right. So my reasoning in the moment was what I just said, that, oh, they've used Blue and Jet. They have they searched a starter, which they've already used. So I'm just going to Nibiru now. I should have checked the graveyard, I guess both in-game and during this replay. But to remind myself, they did still have a live Ronin there. So And I guess looking at their graveyard, I think it might have been fine. Well, let's see. They would have made Elf. Probably brought back Swap Frog, sent another swap. Made IP. I should have actually waited on this Nibiru. I pulled the trigger early on this. I will freely admit that. Interestingly enough, my opponent brought back Gigantic Sprite here. I would think you'd want another level 2 monster. I don't really see why this would be the card you want to bring back. Unless... Well, no, but even then, I was going to say unless you like want to make another Xyz monster next turn and use this effect to detach your material from that one, but like... If you're going to have 2 level 2 monsters in play, then yeah, you just make another Gigantic Sprite, right? I don't get this, but... In any case here, not a very good draw. I think we drew what the Maxx here. I will chain it in response to my opponent's Sprite Elf, just to see if I can get like some amount of action. If I can just draw a Swordsoul or a Tenyi card, then I can Ecclesia for Mo Ye. And I did draw Mo Ye, so we are looking like we're going to be able to do that here. So I'm going to fire off this Ecclesia, but the opponent's got an Ash Blossom. It's like, ah! Ah! Of course, that was our last card! What can you do, though? What can you do? I'm just going to normal summon this Mo Ye and battle over both the Elf and the Jet here, actually, is going to be what I battle over. Just to, again, get level 2 monsters off my opponent's board. At this rate, yeah, I was going to say, I know my opponent's face down is Sprite Starter. I'm going to Jet, or Ash Blossom that. I don't know why I said Jet. I'm going to Ash Blossom the starter. So now I know this card in hand is Smashers, so the only unknown variable here is going to be whatever my opponent top decks. And Sprite Smashers alone won't get them out of this situation, because Elf can't battle over either of these monsters, and Smashers can obviously only get rid of one, so... I was going to switch the Gigantic Sprite into attack mode, set 2 and pass. Don't really know why they bothered switching the Gigantic to attack mode, but alright. I'm just going to battle the Gigantic with the Mo Ye. I figured I'm just probably just going to Smashers to get rid of the Nibiru and the Gigantic. That's fine. I'll just attack directly instead. And then pass over to my opponent here. So we're both kind of in top deck mode, but I at the very least have a Maxx. But I do suspect, especially after my opponent sets another card, that it's very likely one of these face-down cards is called by, so we'll have to keep that in mind. Now here, I top-decked an Ash Blossom, and I didn't think about this until I clicked Battle Phase, which I'll do here in a moment. It was, of course, only after Battle Phase that I realized, like, oh wait, I could have normal summoned Ash Blossom, and then gone into Yazi, and then used Yazi's effect to pop one of the back rows. I probably would have popped the one my opponent set this turn, because this back row just hasn't been represented yet, or hasn't come up at all. But I'd probably pop Yazi in this one, and then I could get Taia, and then potentially start having plays by using Taia to banish one of my monsters. So, it definitely was a misplay for me to go straight to Battle Phase. I actually should have normal summoned the Ash Blossom here. That said, it's not the worst misplay in the world, because at the very least I have a lot of good responses ready for my opponent on their turn here. But I'll just battle directly again with the Mo Ye, and then pass back over to my opponent. So opponent's going to draw for turn. They top decked a Deep Sea Diva, which I don't think they've used. Oh no, they did use one, but I negated it. So they do still have another target in deck. Gonna Ash Blossom, but indeed one of these back rows ended up being a call by. It was this one here. I guess I do still have Maxx to fire off, so you know, at the very least, we are gonna get some amount of advantage back for our opponent being able to go off here. But yeah, I really should have summoned that Ash Blossom in hindsight. This Protos is a very good top deck, actually. Alright, looks like they're going into the Elf with the Divas, giving me yet another draw. And then just pass. I don't know how I feel about that pass there. I mean, it's probably right? Like, I don't think my opponent was able to OTK me. I didn't look at their extra deck, but even if they're on Daigusto Phoenix and Sprite Pixies, they actually would have left me at 100 here. I think it would have been 100. It might have been 200, actually, due to the way that the attacks work out, but it would have been very, very low life points. You need your opponent to have a monster with at least 1800 attack to battle, to OTK them with Daigusto Phoenix plus Pixies, and Mo Ye is just 100 short. So I think I would have been left at like 200 life points if my opponent had a Daigusto Phoenix plus Pixies OTK there, so... Looks like the last card ended up being Imperm. They're going to chain that to the summon of my Mo Ye here. It's totally fine, because I've just got the Protos in hand. So I'll banish 3 of my random monsters and do that. Opponent's going to chain Elf ending the main phase. Really, I should have, like, stayed in the main phase and used Protos to call Dark, but it doesn't matter here. Because I know my opponent's last card, I know it's not relevant, so I'll just battle through their stuff with my Mo Ye's and then smack them with a Protos. So this was actually a very good back and forth that I had with Pure Sprite as Swordsoul Tenyi. This was a very nice game. Yeah, it's nice that we can still have good games like that. I mean, I say still have good games like this, like Sprite is this overwhelming force. Like I said, Swordsoul Tenyi is like very much, in my opinion, still a tier 2 deck. It might be a little bit lower on the power level than I may have initially put it when I made my tier list recently, but I still think it's a tier 2 deck. It's definitely still solid, and this game definitely proves that. So let's take a look at some more duels here. Alright, so for this one, we're going to be up against MathMech. Looks like the Code Talker variant. I was seeing the code thing that lets you link from hand and the Signet conflict and so on and so forth. So Pro's going to be taking the first turn, but as you can see, we got a very nice going second hand here. We have Maxx, Nibiru, and Imperm alongside Mo Ye and Emergence. I could scarcely ask for a better going second hand here. So they're going to sign up mining for the circular. I'll just throw out the Maxx in response. I probably should have done this during the draw phase to play around talent, but it's, I don't know. I will admit, I've said this before in videos too, but like, most of the time while I'm playing these duels for videos, I'm like watching a video on the side or listening to a podcast or something on the side, so I don't always remember to throw out the Maxx during the draw phase. It's honestly like, it's kind of like, it's not something you have to do, it's just nice to do because it plays around stuff this format. So because I have double Imperm here, normally I would have held on to an Imperm and waited for the Alumbration and negated that, but because I actually had two here, I'll just throw one out against the circular, and then I'll throw another out against the Alumbration. And of course, you know, just by luck that I drew two Maxx off of the first Maxx within, like, what, four summons? 4 draws? So that's good. You know, we don't need life cards or anything. It's fine. And then we draw another Mo Ye. I can't complain too much, though, about these subsequent draws, given how good our opening hand was. Unfortunately, my opponent's back row is going to be an Infinite Impermanence. So they're going to stop the Mo Ye line kind of dead in its tracks here. But that's alright, I can just Emergence for the Longyuan, pitch this Mo Ye, summon Longyuan, and pick up my plays from there. But as I reveal the Longyuan, my opponent's actually going to reveal a Maxx of their own, which is definitely more than a bit of a problem here. Because I was just going to win this turn, but now it's going to be... I mean, I don't know, could I have even won this turn? Like, here's the thing, right? Like, I go Chi Shao. I've already used Emergence, so I can't search for the Protos here. I don't even know if I could have won this turn, honestly. But in any case, I'm just going to make the Chi Shao here to get the draw off Mo Ye, give myself a little bit more advantage to combat the advantage my opponent is getting as well. And then I'm just going to search Blackout, move to battle phase, battle over their stuff, hit them with Longyuan, set the Blackout, and then pass. I still got Maxx for their next turn. I've got Nibiru as well as the negation from Chi Shao and the disruption from Blackout. And I can just use the Blackout on the Longyuan, so it's not even like I'm in a position where I really need to use Chi Shao first, which can be a little tricky sometimes if you've got Chi Shao plus Blackout exactly. Like, you want to make sure that you're getting value out of the Chi Shao when possible, but at the same time, it's obviously still good to make sure that you're getting the Blackout value as well. This was a huge misplay on my part. I don't know why I forgot that Lingaribo tribute to self as a cost. For some reason, I had it in my head that I could flip Blackout, my opponent would flip up Lingaribo, and I could Chi Shao it again. I just probably wasn't paying enough attention here as I should have been, but it's all good. It's actually not even like that huge of a deal that we don't get to Blackout here. We'll get a random token for our troubles, but it's really not even that huge of a deal, because we have the Nibiru, so... that said, we do, of course, need to get this Diameter Negate out of the way. I'm going to do that by using Chi Shao on the Alumbration here to try to stop this Negate. This would, of course, be pretty much the right play either way, but here I am doing it knowing that it's going to get negated, again, so that our opponent does not negate Nibiru later in the turn. Looks like they end up grabbing a Nabla here, which is pretty interesting. At that point, they'll just Alumbration and summon the Nabla, and I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll just throw out the Nibiru here. Again, I actually should have waited. I actually should have waited for them to go all the way into Access Code Talker, and then when that hits the board, upon the resolution of the summon, I can Nibiru. That way they waste the Access Code, the Update Jammer, a Splash Mage, maybe a Transcode Talker as well. But as you can see, the Nibiru plus like a million cards in hand was enough, so... There's that duel. Let's take a look at the next one here. Alright, for this one, we're up against... It's interesting. We're up against Nephthys Sprites, or Nephthys, however you want to say that. It's PH, right, I think? The Sacred Phoenix, that ritual deck, that combined with Sprites, because that deck actually has a lot of relevant level 2 monsters. So, Poto's going to go first. Again, I probably should just fire it off to Maxx during the draw phase if I'd been paying more attention, but it's all good. So I was interested to see the extra foolish burial. I was like, wow, I'd never see this card. And then they sent a Herald of the Arclight. I thought this was going to be like a weird Drytron tech, but no, indeed, as we saw, our opponent ended up adding Conductor of Nephthys. It is PH, okay. Nephthys to their hands, so... At that point, they're going to activate the ritual spell. I'll just fire off Maxx here, but I think they have a callby or a crossout. Oh, they have Gamma, that's right, it was even worse. Actual worst case scenario for me here is they not only get to negate my Maxx, but they get to put a couple of extra bodies on the board during their turn. That's rough. That's actually really rough. Gamma, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Gamma is actually really, really good this format. It's really just drawing Driver. That's the problem. Yeah, I really want to play Gamma in Pure Sprite and some other decks right now, but I'm having trouble justifying running the Brick of Driver in the deck, honestly. Not just for the like fear of drawing it, but also just the main deck. Excuse me, the main deck space it takes up. It's kind of brutal, not gonna lie. Not brutal, might be a bit dramatic, but it's rough. It's rough trying to play Gamma. Excuse me, Gamma. Oh, I have kind of case of the hiccups here. Let me drink some water. Alright, so, yeah, then my opponent threw down a secret village, and I'm like, I didn't even know Nephthys, I mean, to be fair, I didn't know anything Nephthys did as part of its combos, but I definitely did not know that they locked you out of spells as part of their play. It's definitely going to be a big problem for me in my emergence here. Also, interesting Codebreaker line our opponent's going to. I'm not familiar with this Codebreaker archetype, like, at all, but opponent is definitely making very good use of it here. Making the Nightmare Griffin. I don't know really why they honestly made Nightmare Griffin here. Yeah, they don't get the effect, and it doesn't really seem like it's doing anything unless there's an effect I'm missing on here. Nope. Okay, never mind. But yeah, so then they went into the Appaloosa, and I'm like, oh my god. And then after that, they overlaid a Gigantic Sprite, and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? They have Sprite plays on top of this too? So, honestly... I mean, I won't lie, I'm going to get wrecked this duel, but this was such a cool deck, like, this was such a cool combo my opponent did, that I really wanted to show this off, and I think half the reason I want to show this off is because round 1 of latest MCS, I actually faced off against a Nephthys Sprite. I didn't even know it was Nephthys Sprite at the beginning, because they really only did Sprite plays. I thought it was a pure Sprite mirror match, but... And I remember seeing that and wondering, like, huh, Nephthys, that's interesting. Is it just because they have level 2? Like, what's the actual upside of running this variant of Sprite? And, well, I definitely had that question answered here. As you can see, my opponent ended on a secret village that's live, because they have this devotee of Nephthys in play. They've got a Sprite Carrot. They have 2 negates on an Appaloosa. They've got an IP Masquerade and an Elf. They can't use the Elf right now because their zones are full, but... And they even got to throw on a random Nightmare Griffin on top of it, just as part of their combo. That's insane. That's such an insane end board. Also, great draw, right on time, Ash Blossom. No. Alright, I'm going to start with Vishuda here, and I'm like, I'll try to do stuff. Like, I'll see how far we get. Then summon the Mo Ye, reveal the Shthana. Opponent's going to activate Appaloosa. So, my thought process here is like, okay, I'll force this Appaloosa negate, and then I'll move to battle phase. I'll see if I can battle over their devotee and Appaloosa, or like IP Appaloosa. So I'll battle over some amount of things here. I'll try to, and then maybe we have plays. But no, at this point, when I went to go in the main phase, of course, my opponent then activated the IP, getting them a Mekk-Knight Crusader Avermax, and that was definitely just going to be it for me. Because of course, with Crusader Avermax in play, I'm not able to battle with any of my opponent's other stuff. So. Very cool deck I wanted to kind of give the spotlight here from this Nephthys Sprite deck. Yeah, that is one hell of an import they put out there. We do still have one more game to look at, so let's just jump straight into that last duel here. And for this last game, we are up against, it's a punk pile. 60 cards. It's got a lot of punk stuff. It's got some Thunder Dragon stuff, some Chaos stuff. It's a punk pile. So... alas, it might be too much of a pile because my opponent did not do anything on their first turn. I was really scared when I saw this hand going second. I'm like, cool, no disrupts. This hand would have been amazing going first. This hand is all gas, but not so great going first, or going second rather, unless your opponent just doesn't do anything. So I do think maybe my opponent might have cooked a little bit too hard here, or maybe it just drew, I don't know, they just happened to draw a hand of, I don't know though, like how do you draw 5 dead cards? Like what could possibly be in their hand? This is one of those games where I really wish this was a dual room game so I could see my opponent's hand. I think really our opponent, or Konami should let us see replays. Let me rephrase that. I think Konami should let us see our opponent's hands during ranked match replays as well. During like the Duelist Cup and tournaments, it obviously makes sense why you would not want to show your opponent, like, show people your opponent's hand or deck. But for ranked match replays, I feel like we should be able to see their hand. I want to know so badly what's in here, but in any case, I'm going to start with an Ashuna, and my opponent responds with a Maxx. Here, I really debated just summoning the Ashuna, setting Impermanent passing, giving my opponent only 1 draw, because I'm like, well, their hand is already apparently, like, really bad, right? So, but then I was like, you know what? I decided to say, fuck it. I'm taking the Maxx challenge here. I do this often enough, I guess. I should say this is a scenario where I don't think I would often take the Maxx challenge, because, again, my opponent's hand is obviously really bad, but I decided to just say, let's just do it. Why not? So I'm going to summon the Ashuna in attack mode, and then go for the Swordsoul of Mo Ye here. My opponent being on 60 cards was actually another factor to me taking this challenge, because, like, it's going to be that much more difficult for them to draw into Nibiru. And Nibiru really is just about all I'm scared of here. There's not a whole lot else I think my opponent could do that would really kind of scare me off here, but now I'm just going to Longyuan for Baronne after this, and really, like, as long as I can get Baronne to stick, then I know I'm good. And sure enough, Baronne does stick, so sure enough, I am good. I'm going to burn my opponent with the Longyuan here, and then that combined with the total attack points I've got on board is enough to take my opponent out. So, yeah, we didn't get to see them play a single card aside from Maxx here, but, I mean, come on. It feels so good to actually take the Maxx challenge and not get punished for it that I could not show this game. So, there are those duels. Thank you so much for watching them. As always, as ever, I am greatly appreciative. Let's just go ahead and move on now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.